Hey now. Thanks for joining us today on SmallCapSteve Live. We got lots to cover, lots of news this morning. Big news. Liberty Health Sciences is getting acquired by AYR Strategies for $372 million. A stock that's near and dear to my heart, Symmetrix. They just announced a $30 million contract. They're suspending guidance. Midas Gold has a feasibility study valued at about $1.9 billion. Consumer confidence crashes in December, and we've got to talk about this $900 billion COVID stimulus package and some of the weird nuances to it. So going to be bringing on Jay. Jay is what he goes by, Jay Lutz, and I'll be pulling on Jeff Stevens later on in the show. Okay, let's hit it. Here he is, both the greatest writer, editor, and overall sophisticated investor I know, Jay Luke.
Busy morning as always. I definitely thought things would be slowing down by now, but that's certainly not the case. Looks like we're going to be busy right into Christmas holidays here. Yeah,
it's like we were talking about this yesterday, and you know, it's funny. I was expecting things to slow down there back in August. We never really got that slowdown, and here we are. It's nearly Christmas season, and everything is still totally cooking. Lots of activity happening. We're seeing it on the U.S. cannabis side. I think that this Liberty Health thing is just the start of a flurry of M&A as everybody continues to try to win this arms race. Eventually, there's going to be some regulatory changes that's going to allow for the U.S. operators to list on, the NYSE and NASDAQ, and all the opportunity that's going to create. So there's a few public assets that are worth chatting about, and of course, there's some private ones that our audience probably doesn't really care that much about. I don't know how many private equity guys are watching us. I think we got more of a retail investor audience, so we'll get into all that. The first thing I kind of wanted to talk about here is let's talk about that $900 billion COVID stimulus bill. Going to pull up your screen here.
So the bill yesterday, some of what is being missed by a lot of people is there was a Department of Defense bill included within the overall bill that was passed. So I mean, we're seeing a lot of Twitter commentary and otherwise commenting on foreign aid and everything else. That's actually not within the COVID relief bill, which people seem to be missing. But at the same time, it's good that people are keeping aware of what's actually being done by government and what's being snuck into these bills, right? Case in point, our writer Amanita this morning outlined some of the less than stellar things that were included in the recent bill. So, I mean, whereas, yes, anyone that's making less than $75,000 a year in the U.S. is eligible for a $600 one-time stimulus check, which is great. I mean, at the end of the day, you and I both know $600 does not go a long way, but for some families, it's the difference of food or not. And I mean, it's been a tough year for a lot of people. There's also a $300 unemployment benefit top-up included in there. And then Hermina actually put this nice graph and kind of breaks things down in terms of where things were going on a $1 billion basis. So small businesses are one of the biggest winners here. They're getting pretty well double what direct checks are doing. Unemployment benefits next. There are rental assistance, childcare, nutrition, and agriculture provisions in there as well, along with a plethora of other items.
Let's talk about some of those other items, and this is all from Twitter. I haven't had time to fully vet it, but NPR Radio is getting $465 million. Marine turtles are getting $14 million. Indian tribes are getting $5 million for not killing the turtles. This is from at Amuse on Twitter. Africa's getting 171 million. Pakistan's getting $10 million for gender programs. Sri Lanka's getting $500,000 for the military. The Kennedy Center is getting 26 million, I think, for renovations, and another 14 million for operations.
So a lot of that would actually be related to the defense portion of the bill rather than COVID, right? So again, that's what some people seem to be missing. There's a lot of angry people today as they go through what's included in this bill. That's literally, I think, 5,600 pages or something. I did pull it up. I can't remember the exact number, but it's just disgusting, really. I mean, don't tell me that the people voting on this have read every page and instead they're just going to go, yeah, let's do it, without knowing what lobbyist groups have managed to get their hands in it, right?
It's crazy. There's a lot of money at stake here, and they're effectively rushing these things through, and there's so much room where it just seems totally unrelated. The whole purpose of what they were trying to accomplish, as I understand it, is to make sure that those who basically can't afford to live are getting those checks. And if you're a U.S. taxpayer, you're getting dinged for somewhere in the ballpark of, I don't know, $2,500 in debt, and you are effectively getting a $600 check in the mail. So it's not really all that
all that exciting on a personal basis. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, airlines are getting another $15 billion for it's in theory supposed to be for payroll assistance, but it doesn't have any enforcement clauses to prevent layoffs or anything of that sort. So, I mean, we can probably imagine where a lot of that money will end up somehow magically. And I mean, it's not going to last long. As per the Airlines for America, some carriers are burning up to $180 million each day, which is a mind-blowing number. But it makes sense when these businesses are built to run at a certain capacity, and that capacity just is not there right now. Mm-hmm. $45 billion transportation package also includes provisions for airports, public transit, state highways. And then the last thing that Hermina really wanted to point out was the corporate meal expenses, which can now be deducted by 100% rather than 50%. So the working theory on this is it helps restore the restaurant industry by providing a bailout to the people that probably don't need a bailout in the sense of corporate America.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's move on here to the next big story, which is really the big news for our audience, which is mostly focused on the Canadian junior markets. AYR Strategies is looking to enter the Florida market with a $372 million all-stock acquisition of Liberty Health Sciences. Okay, Jay, what can you tell us about this transaction?
So yeah, like you said, all stock valued at $372 million. That's in Canadian dollars. Liberty shareholders are going to hold about 20% of the resulting issuer. They also get to elect one independent director. Now, I mean, I'll also note that we largely covered the Liberty Health Sciences aspect of AYR's announcement this morning. They also announced that they're spending, I think it's $101 million moving into the state of New Jersey with a separate acquisition.
What states is Liberty Health Science in other than Florida? Are they just primarily focused on Florida?
Offhand, I believe they're pretty well a single state operator.
Okay.
So yeah, AYR now will have exposure to Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Nevada, and Massachusetts. So, I mean, they're certainly expanding. They're very well capitalized. So, and I mean, their share structure is actually one that I imagine a lot of other operators envy. Mm-hmm. Notably, no position in California. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something happen there.
So I pulled. Can you hear me right now, Jay?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, the text. We're still working out the kinks on this technology here. But here's Liberty Health Sciences. I've just pulled up this on Y Charts. Y Chart's a fantastic service. I'm talking to them later to see if I can get some kind of a deal for talking about them on SmallCapSteve Live. I've always loved Y Charts. If this looks like they're paying somewhere in the ballpark of And there's a bit of a premium over this $308 million market cap. So probably somewhere in the ballpark of give or take 5 times sales. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so I mean, on a share basis, they're actually paying a 94% premium, which it seems ridiculous until you look at the current valuation of Liberty Health, right? I'm not sure that market cap figure in there is correct.
How many
sorry. It's based on current, which is up 35 cents, so significantly up from the close yesterday. Yeah, so I mean, it essentially comes out to $1.05 per share.
Yeah, but it's a company that's doing around $70 million revenue, so
yeah,
just over 5 times sales that they're paying, based on the values that they have here. $57 million in EBITDA. That's not adjusted. That's the Y chart metric. Cash flow from operations, 20 million. So they're paying close to 20 times operating cash flow. This isn't a cheap transaction by any means. It's
not cheap, but I mean, Florida's notorious for the price that a license in the state commands still, right? Whereas a lot of other states, the value has seemingly dropped quite a bit. Florida's really held steady comparatively.
Yeah, it was a super attractive state because I think everybody thought that they were going to be TrueLeaf.
Yeah. The fact that anyone commands over 50% of any market in the U.S. is just...
It's bonkers.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's bonkers. Just wait until the Robin Hooders get access to TrueLeaf.
Oh,
they're gonna send that. It'll be a 10x.
Is that an investment strategy, waiting for the Robin Hooders to come?
I think it is. I believe. Okay, and this is this may sound a little nutty here, but I don't think that that's a bad strategy to go buy the cash flow producers in the space that have cleanest share structures and just wait it out. Whether that's Green Thumb, TrueLeaf, heck, AYR. Just pulling up TrueLeaf's numbers here. $4.7 million market cap. They're trading at about 17 times EBITDA to EV.
I think you said million there. That's actually billion.
Billion. Yeah, billion. I haven't drank enough coffee, and after my Steelers got their ass handed to them last night, I'm still kind of dealing with a little bit of a hangover. $107 million in operating cash flow on a trailing 12 months basis. That's okay. That is kind of pricey, but let's give some context here. Most of these names in Canada, they had no hope of generating any cash flow like this, despite what the Bruce Littons and Terry Booths of the world wanted to tell you. Here, TrueLeaf, they're getting it done, and they're going to command just a stupid premium when the second cannabis bubble starts. I think TrueLeaf is a 10x from here, assuming that if you can grant me that there's going to be some sort of regulatory clearance over the next 12 months, TrueLeaf is a 10x from here, just based on Robin Hooders alone who live in Florida or go to Florida. And they're going to create so much fucking noise that it's going to be all over social media. Anybody who's tweeting about TrueLeaf now is going to become like, I don't know, some kind of like an influencer just from their coverage of TrueLeaf.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to imagine. I mean, your claim to fame yourself was you were an early supporter of Iantis before things went south for them, really, right?
I was the first one to ever tweet about TrueLeaf. I know that there's some people who try to take that claim, but if you really want to go into the background and take a look at that, and I could tell you the whole story of how that happened. It was actually by accident. They just went public one morning. I had them on my list of private operators that I was able to research online, right? Like, my background is I'm not a banker. I'm not a private equity guy. I'm just like figuring this shit out from just Googling it and seeing what operators exist in each state. And I had a list. And then one morning, I'd follow the CSE on Twitter. One morning I saw TrueLeaf went public. They didn't even have all their filings up on the website. I actually thought that there was 1/10 the share count that there was. And I put like half my portfolio into it. I was like, shit, they're trading at like 1 times EBITDA. I'm all over this thing. And then I found out that instead of there being 10 million shares out, there was like 110 million shares out. It was one of those weird US share structure things. And I just started tweeting like a crazy man. And the next thing I know, there was like this whole like Wolf, I think, spotted it. And he lives in Florida. So for him, he was well aware of what True Leaf was. And then all of a sudden there was this huge like herd of people that just wanted to get in on True Leaf, and the stock I was buying like in like the $7 to $10 range that first day, and I think in that first like week or so it hit like $21. And it's kind of it, and it was weird, right? Like what a lot of people didn't realize was here we got a positive cash flow generating cannabis company. For us Canadians, I'm sorry, that's weird. That's weird. We're being told that like these companies are going to go buy a farm and grow some hemp. And they're going to generate, $20 million of, cash flow off of that. And it's just for $100 million. We've seen some really, really weird stories and promises made that didn't pass the basic smells test. And that's pretty much everything, really.
Well, welcome to small cap is really what you're getting at there.
What's your favorite? I don't know if I want to put you on the spot here, but what's your favorite lie ever told from cannabis companies to cannabis investors?
My favorite lie would actually not be a cannabis company specifically, but rather that Deloitte report outlining the supposed market in Canada for cannabis. That was just outrageous. I can't remember the exact figure, but something like 8.1 billion or something. And I mean, we're at, I think, a quarter of that if we're being optimistic currently. Like it showed
up on every private operator.
Exactly. It showed up on every single cannabis deck the second it came out. I can't remember when exactly it was, like as in what year and what stage of the cycle it was. I know it was early. And I mean, it just got annoying because it was like, okay, now point to how you're actually intending to get the market to the size, what you're doing to capture your share. I mean, Hexo, when it's still called the hydropothecary or something along those lines.
I don't think I've ever said the word properly, and I'm not.
No. And I think they were operating under a base case of getting something like $10 a gram wholesale or something. And they were going to do solely medical and everything. And they point to this report as being their proof of how it'll work. Don't quote me because I know that's off a little bit, but I mean, just everyone, the amount of money they thought they're going to make, whereas there's people like myself going, it's just going to be commoditized. Some people still don't agree with that, but that's very much the case. Unless you're
Germany.
Unless you have a premium product, it's a commodity, right? I mean, at the end of the day, show me an agricultural product that isn't commoditized, right? I mean, there was nothing out there that points to cannabis being any different on a large scale, right? So, I mean, there was a lot of issues with how the market was initially presented.
Somebody tweeted out yesterday. It was Gary Jones, I think. Harrison and I've met Harrison in person. He's a pretty bright guy. But I'm going to pull up the tweet. And Harrison, I doubt you're watching, but if you are, apologies here. I don't mean to pick on you, but I kind of wanted to look at this. So he's saying, anyone have a cognate argument for why weed won't enter the U.S. market share as a whole? This Canopy. Seems like TerraSend is the new beachhead. Acreage provides entry to other states. Canopy still has the most dry powder to deploy and probably the best intangibles. Bracket brands. So here's my issue that I take with that, and I don't by any means mean to pick on Harrison for that tweet, but what brands does Canopy have that really matter?
You know what brands Canopy has? I kid you not. When I go into a dispensary, I say, I'm interested in XYZ, but I'm not even looking at anything made by Canopy. But to me, it's just not a quality product. It's mass produced. And I mean, even their beverages, I'm a huge beverage guy, and 9 out of 10, I can't even stomach. They just aren't good. They're Deep State, which is supposed to taste like a cola. I poured that out after spending $8 on a can of this, and I mean, you can attest to how bloody cheap I am. So for me, that's a big deal.
So okay, so let's take a look at some of the other news here quickly, and then we're going to pull on our guests, the guy who's lighting up the small cap markets, Jeff Stevens. So we'll pull him on in a minute. I see you there, Jeff. We're going to pull you on just after we get through this. Matrix, they announced
we'll
a $3 million contract, and they've suspended guidance. So what can you tell me about this story here, Jay?
So Matrix this morning announced this excellent contract. It's the largest to date. It's for a tunneling project. They didn't say where. They didn't provide a timeline. Deeper in the release, they indicate they're not doing timelines as a result of the pandemic. Pandemic has absolutely impacted everything in our lives, as everyone is well aware. Timelines have gone to shit. So the company has effectively stopped providing timelines, and as a result, it's had to suspend guidance. Now, I mean, I don't think that's a terrible thing for the company in the sense of suspending guidance, because we know what the backlog is. It's at 108.1 million. So Matrix is doing good things, but with the impact of the virus, I mean, for all we know, you could be working on a project and next week you get shut down because of some lockdown, right? So it's definitely newsworthy. I don't really like how they kind of hit it mid-paragraph within the overall release, but it is what it is.
I should disclose that I'm pretty sure I'm actually long this name.
You're pretty sure, hey?
I buy a lot of small cap stocks. Here's sort of a look at what they do. So Matrix is they put this sort of
cellular concrete.
Yeah, they put gas bubbles into concrete, and what it does is it ultimately turns it into like this foam like sort of
it's supposed to provide extra strength or something along those lines.
Yeah, well, it's instead of using like gravel, it can be used as like insulation, and it's lighter. So there's actually one really cool study that showed that they put it underneath roads in somewhere like near Alaska or something like that, and it resulted in the roads cracking far less.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's nothing patented about it though. It's just they're just putting gas bubbles into the product.
Yeah, but if you're good at what you do, if you don't have the patent, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next story here.
This is what happens, folks, when you say what we're covering, and then we get too chatty on one particular topic.
Yeah.
Midas Gold feasibility study values their stibnite gold project in Idaho at 1.9 billion at 1850 gold. So yeah, Midas Gold is a late stage developer of a project. Essentially, they released their feasibility study this morning. They're expecting to create about 550 jobs directly, plus indirect jobs as well within Idaho. Payback period of 2.5 years, which is great. Great cash flow of nearly 600 million per year for the first 4 years of the project if it goes according to plan. Yeah, they've got a great resource there. They've got 6 million ounces of gold, 8.8 million ounces of silver, and 205.9 million pounds of antimony. I could be saying that wrong. And that's just measured and indicated, plus proven and probable and inferred. Life of mine estimated at 12 years, whereas the mill is estimated at 14 and a third effectively. And the first 4 years are expecting about 466,000 ounces to be pulled out each year. To give you the 30-second high-level overview of it.
Okay. Well, very interesting. Lots of Idaho gold plays. Gold hasn't caught its bid yet. We got some of these large operators. They're trading, as the operating leverage holds up, we're going to see them. Some of these names really start to catch a bid, and this is great news, I think, for
I think
Idaho plays.
The best thing about the news here is I'll show it on my screen quickly here if Newswire will load for me.
And then we got to get to Jeff, because I think that's what our audience wants. They want the star.
$100 per ounce gold, after tax net present value of 1.3 billion. At 1850 gold, it's 1.9 billion. So that's why we're so bullish on gold making a solid move.
Yeah, and it trade at $550 million market cap, give or take.
Yeah, that's what they actually put in the release, right up here.
Okay, and it's often said that these things trade at or above their net present value in a hot gold market. So
something great for Midas, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, let's get Jeff on.
Yeah. So let's
hear his take on things.
Let's bring on. We're about to bring on an absolute star in the Canadian small cap and junior markets. It's a pleasure to have you here, Jeff. Jeff, can you hear us? It's coming in a little shaky there. Okay, I think. Okay, I think we lost him. Well, there goes Jeff Stevens. So we'll see if we can get him back here. The tough thing is we're doing this all on the fly and just trying to bring. See, this is now choppy. I'm now seeing 2/3 of the screen is being filled up. So there we go. So as we wait for Jeff here, another thing we can talk about here is consumer confidence crashes in December as the labor market lurches. So this is an article here from
Zero Hedge.
Zero Hedge. We could see that we started to see an increase in consumer confidence, and then it just kind of fell back off here in December. Obviously, everybody's hurting job-wise in the U.S. People I know in the U.S. are saying it's pretty rough. It's certainly not it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We got Jeff back. Let's see if we can get him. Jeff, are you there? Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I think we can hear you. Let's.
There he is.
There he is. There's the man.
I don't know what's
How
happening.
you doing, Jeff?
It's my first time using live studio here.
Oh, well, we're new to it too. Oh, I just cut him out. There we go. There we go.
There we go.
We better?
Okay, so Jeff.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're doing pretty good. So what's the latest here? What should we get into first? We know you've got a big following out there. Former CEO of Data Metrics, a stock that's really rebounded, gone from 2 cents to 13 cents, and on all of Andrew Ryu, he took his South Korean connections with those test kits. You're also involved with Psyched Wellness, which has done really well out of the gate. Added some pretty key members to the advisory board. What would you like to talk about first?
Listen, I'm excited about, obviously, Psyched is my baby, right? So I'm pretty excited about talking about that. But obviously, I started Data Metrics 3.5 years ago with Andrew, and still very involved helping them from a strategy side as an advisor. So you guys lead me where you want to go first.
Okay, so let's start off with Data Metrics. So Data Metrics, and this was funny when all the COVID stuff first started hitting. You put us on the phone with Andrew, and we were a little bit skeptical over how the company worked out. And I remember saying to Andrew at the time, and the story was, for those of you who are kind of new to it, that so obviously South Korea, they handled COVID pretty much the best of any country. They were quick to just test lots of different testing kits. Here in Canada, we were struggling with that. So Andrew Ryu, who happened to have this AI company that, and you guys have actually announced some pretty big contracts, just took this huge 180 and started selling coronavirus test kits. And I remember saying to Andrew on the phone, Andrew, why didn't you do this privately? There's a lot of cash flow here that you could have kept. And Andrew, I remember him saying to me on the phone, he goes, if I would have known that this was going to be this successful, I don't think I would have handed it over to Data Metrics.
Well, I think, it came through because of Data Metrics. So to back up as to why that happened, we had done a lot on the AI side in South Korea. Obviously, Andrew has very great, deep family relationships with, C-suite levels at Samsung, Lotte, LG. So to have access as a new company in Canada to be able to sell in multinational companies like that, We just didn't have that access in North America. So it made sense to go there first. As a result of the work we were doing there, the Canadian Embassy in Seoul reached out to us, and we did a lot of signing ceremonies at the embassy, and actually Andrew, through some family connections, helped them with some introductions as well. So when the pandemic hit, the embassy in Seoul actually reached out to Andrew and said, "Can you help us source COVID test kits for Canada? We need to get them. We know you have good connections." And as it turns out, Andrew could, and he's always got his thinking cap on, and he thought, well, rather than just be an introducer, why don't I actually establish some relationships here, and we'll be the importer and sell them. So that's how the whole thing happened organically through that process. They learned a lot, as you can imagine. Nobody really understood the ins and outs of that business and how to do it. And Andrew and Marshall and the team quickly identified how to bring them in properly, how to sell them, and then identified that it was more than just selling. You actually needed to, unless you're just selling to governments who have the labs, the clinics, the nurses, everything, all that infrastructure, you need to actually be able to provide that service as well. And so that's sort of how the whole company's morphed into this. And they've been extremely successful to date. I think they've probably done more revenue than any COVID company in Canada on the microcap space for sure. They've signed over $30 million in contracts with the biggest television film production companies in the world. They've been working with some of the largest mining companies in the world as well. So as we see the second wave come in, I think there's going to be some exciting stuff in 2021 for them. This vaccination, in my opinion, really is a treatment. It's not a vaccination. It doesn't prevent you from getting COVID. It doesn't prevent you from spreading COVID. It just means that if you do get it, the symptoms will be less taxing on you. So I think that the testing will continue. I know for a fact, as Marshall talked about on his last sort of webinar that he had done, that they are approved by Air Canada, and they're working through those. And I think the airline industry, the travel industry as a whole, is desperate to figure out a way to get people comfortable flying. When you spend 8, 9, 10 months isolated, not sitting beside a stranger, and now you're asking them to get on a plane for 3 hours or 8 hours, that's a big ask. So, doing everything they can to get people comfortable. So I'm excited. I'm still a very large shareholder, and as I said, I talk to the guys pretty regularly, help with, what I think might be good with strategy with the markets. And I hope that I think they're at a show me stage. People want to see the numbers. So I think, that was their best quarter, Q3. I think Q4 will be great. And the guys are working hard at trying to make 2021 even better.
Mm-hmm. If you told me back in March that we'd get to this stage where we're now, what's it, like 9 months into this, and we wouldn't be able to buy test kits at Shoppers Drug Mart. Wow. I would have thought that you were like, well, I would have said we're screwed. You seem to know the test kit business pretty well. Do you see that happening anytime soon?
I sure hope so. Listen, Datametrics has these 3-minute rapid antigen tests. I use them, and they got slapped on the wrist for letting me use them. I posted it online and said, wow, this is incredible. Like, come on, Canada, get your act together. They've got a 96% accuracy rate, which is, in line with some of the lower quality PCR tests. Now, the PCR test that Datametrics has through South Korea, like 99.9% accuracy, which is, why they're getting film production companies and governments to buy them, because they don't want a 4%, fail rate on them. But when you're looking at a, $15, $20 at-home test, if you have a family of 4, and this is the way I looked at it, like with a family of 4, if all of us take it and one of us shows up as positive, well, then all 4 of us should go get tested, because, 1 out of 4, you've got that 4% slippage. So I think it's a really good tool. It's not biblical in the sense that, there is that higher rate of a potential of a false positive or negative. But as you move forward in this, and I think we're probably 2 years into it, like I sure hope that Health Canada, gets their act together and looks at whether it's a Datametrics one or one of the others, where we can have these available for people to buy. Like, you buy an at-home pregnancy test. If it shows up, you still go to a doctor and get a lab test done. You don't just use the at-home pregnancy test. That's just your sort of motivator for you to check, oh, I think I might have something. I think I might have a baby. I better go to the doctor, right? So as we move forward in this, I think it allows people more comfortably to also go and see some of their family and friends. And mental health, this is a segue into the whole psychedelics, but the mental health situation that we're going to be facing is just going to be that much further compounded the further we are from allowing people to socialize. So if we can do it safely, I think we've learned a lot as a society about how this disease is spreading. And, if you're over 60 or you've got a pre-existing condition, then you're at a higher risk. Well, then those are the people that we should be isolating and protecting. But if you're young and relatively healthy, wear a mask, wash your hands, keep some distance, and let's get the economy back, and let's have some testing available so that people can do that at home. And it's not such a burden on the government, because right now, I don't know what the governments are paying for all their tests, but you're up in the $150 to $200 per test range. Now I don't know what they're paying. I don't know what the government, whether it be the provincial government, but that's crazy. We got to get a less expensive option and allow people to pay for it themselves as well if they want it.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly intertwined in the sense of one has led to the other. I mean, what you're doing with psych wellness, it plays well into the data metrics, even if it isn't upfront. I mean, where are you guys with in terms of your products? I know you're working on developing them. You had announced that, I think it was last week offhand. I go through a lot of news releases, so I may be slightly off on that. But where are you in the process of moving things along with psych wellness?
Yeah, so we're really excited. Steve, as you mentioned earlier, we put we've added some really great talent to our board and advisory board this year. It's really been about building that foundation. And what we've learned, when we went public, we knew we had something special with our mushroom. It's called Amanita Muscaria. It's a psychedelic mushroom, but it's legal. It's never been classified as a drug. So we knew we had something special with that. And it was all about being the first company in modern time to do anything with this in the science path. We're doing everything with our CRO partner, KGK Sciences. We've done our toxicology report that provided us a clear path to market. We're doing, as we announced last week, our first extraction. We're getting our specifications written up. Once we have those, we'll commence our preclinical study. That's about an 8 to 10 month process. At the end of that, we'll have the safe dosage, the efficacy, everything that we need, all the data and IP that we need to do two things. So firstly, we'll continue down the path that we went public with. That is, we're going to do a health and wellness play with a supplement. Our first product will be a tincture. It's going to be similar effect to what you'd experience with melatonin. So it's going to calm and relax you. It's a natural sort of relaxer. But once we're about a third of the way through our preclinical, we'll have enough data there where we can sort of release the hounds, if you will. We've got incredible horsepower on our board. Professor David Nutt, who's the chair of Compass Pathways Scientific Advisory Board. He's a professor at Imperial College UK. He's been wanting to work with Amanita and specifically muscimol, which is our active compound, for about 20 years. So, we were able to attract a guy who's, the chair of the Scientific Advisory Board for Compass Pathways at $2.5 billion market cap to join our little $30 million market cap. And he started as an advisor and he got comfortable with the team and how we're moving things forward. And he moved up to a full board position. So he's engaged. He's on calls with us weekly, and we're really excited because as we get that data from our preclinical, what we'd like to do is have enough of that data and IP where we can do some further studies next year, like clinical studies. One of the areas where anxiety, we think that muscimol is a fantastic tool for people suffering with anxiety. Anecdotally, people have been using it in tea form. And we'll be, as I said, the first ones to take this through the clinical path and the preclinical path where we'll actually have that data. And we're applying to the FDA for a new dietary ingredient and Health Canada for a natural health product number. So we're doing all that work to support this. We'll have a strong foundation and then we'll go from there.
Where do you guys think that you'd be able to sell these these products? Like what store would I be able to buy these at when they are available?
Yeah, so that's again part of the team. So Michael Niederhoff, who's our chairman of the board, he's currently the president of Jewel Labs Canada. He was one of the first 10 employees with Red Bull Canada. He's a consumer packaged good rock star, and he's got an incredible Rolodex of contacts. We've already got one of the national distributors who's up and waiting for us to provide him with specifications to put on the shelves. Again, melatonin, and that's kind of the environment that you'll see our first product. It'll be a health wellness product. So in pharmacies and in nature sort of stores that are selling those sort of natural products. And then another path will be that clinical, where we're really going to go. And we think that, there's a great interview with Professor Nutt where he talks about his excitement for the psychedelics, specifically, what he's doing with Compass and with what we're doing. And the advantage that he says a legal mushroom is he can study it, he can import it, he can do everything he needs without all the restrictions and the red tape that comes with a restricted product. So, and then at the end of those studies, if we're successful, which we believe we will be, we're then able to go to market. Whereas, the other products in the industry, whether it be psilocybin, DMT, LSD, they're going to need to change legislation. So you need the lobby groups, you need to work with that, you need to change perception, which is happening now, which is great. There was a fantastic show on CNN talking about psychedelics, all great movements to help destigmatize. But it takes time. And our advantage is, I think we have a head start because we have this mushroom that is legal. We're doing all the proper studies and the proper work now for that strong foundation to allow us to go down the clinical path. But at the end of that, I think we have a much shorter path to market because, again, we're not dealing with trying to change laws at the end of it.
So the part I find interesting about this mushroom in particular is just that the psychedelic aspect, but yet it's able to be, there's no restrictions on it. So is it just a low quantity of psychedelic component that is within this mushroom that once you extract it, it's got a high enough content to cause psychoactiveness, I guess, sorry. Just how has this gone so undetected is my question, really.
So that's a great question. It's been used for centuries by various indigenous groups. The Siberian shamans used it, and in fact, there's if you want to look into it, there's a theory that the story of Santa Claus is derived from Amanita and the Siberian shamans delivering Amanita to people in the villages. It's really cool. And if you look at all the historical sort of the old European Christmas ornaments, they're all mushrooms. They're all these Amanita mushrooms. So
really?
That's another story.
So look at that. We're being festive.
So it's entrenched in that European history, and it's still consumed. When you look at a functional mushroom, for example, where a mushroom is functional is that it's edible and that it's got an underlying health benefit. I think we have the trifecta. So it's edible, it's still consumed throughout Europe and Asia. It's got anecdotally these underlying health benefits where people have been using it for centuries and more recently in teas. So not so much on the ceremonial side, but for helping them with anxiety and inflammation. And it's also psychoactive. So I think we have sort of the trifecta of the functional mushroom in the sense that we check off all these great boxes. The reason it was never classified in our opinion is because there is a compound in the mushroom called ibotenic acid. So what you need to do is you need to do the extraction process, and you're actually converting ibotenic acid into muscimol. If you don't do that, if you were just to eat the mushroom raw, you get quite sick. And Amanita mushroom, like the genus, there are a number of Amanita mushrooms. Some of them are quite the most poisonous in the world. And as a result of that, Amanita muscaria has been mislabeled. If you Google it, people say, oh, it's a poisonous mushroom, stay away, don't touch it. That's been our opportunity. We understood it was psychedelic. We did the toxicology assessment. We did all the work. We've done our extractions. And we've determined that we can convert enough of the ibotenic acid into muscimol so that it's not going to provide a negative experience. We've identified that the amount of muscarine, which is another compound that is quite in it, is so minimal that it has no effect on human consumption. So by doing our proprietary extraction, we've been able to convert it to a point that we have this end result that we can now use into those products. And that's what we're going to be doing, testing and further product development in 2021.
That's really, really interesting. There's also a pretty neat backstory in there, given the time of the year.
It's very cool. Yeah. There's a great Joe Rogan interview with the name of the gentleman fails me now, but he goes into the whole history. You could just Google Amanita muscaria Christmas, and it'll pull up, and it's really interesting. It's quite fascinating to see sort of how that and it makes sense to a lot of those sort of theories. So yeah, if you've got some time and you're looking for something to look into, or we can talk about it another time. Happy to go through it with you guys.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look that up just out of pure interest more than anything else, honestly. I love small factoids like that. So when you say it's psychoactive, what's it comparable to in that regard?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting point. It works on your GABA A receptors, right? So that's one of the most important neurotransmitters in the brain, and the effect is different than psilocybin. So it's more akin to being inebriated, like an alcohol high, than it would be than a
Okay.
psilocybin high. And historically, it has been used. It's said that the Vikings used it before they'd go into battle because it gave them a sense of size. So if you think about the game Super Mario Brothers, when they eat the Amanita mushroom, they go in size, they get much bigger. So that's all part of the theory and history of this mushroom. There you go. You're finding some of the shamans so what they would do, yeah, they would pick the mushrooms and they would hang them in the pine trees, and then they would deliver them. And they actually went down in Siberia. The huts, the snow was so high up that they had to go through the top of the through the top of the building.
That is so interesting.
But they grow in the pine forests and all throughout Europe and North America.
Huh. Look at that.
So I lost track of what I was saying before you put up the picture there.
No worries. Yeah, so I mean that's certainly interesting because I mean a lot of the times you hear things are psychoactive, but my next question is always, okay, so what's it comparable to?
Yeah,
hearing it's comparable
so I think,
to. Sorry?
They don't really recommend, and we're doing studies on that again. We're doing our preclinical, which is going to go through those dosage findings to find the safe levels. But it's not recommended right now that you do a hero dose, if you will.
Absolutely.
It can be quite dark, but on a level, it's really anecdotally, people have talked about it for decades on how it's helped them with various ailments, and so those are areas that we're going to study. A lot of that work's already been done for us. Professor Nutt, he's hired one of the students. He's collected 3,500 scientific papers that mention muscimol. We're narrowing that down so that we've got the results of our preclinical, the first phase, that's going to give us the data that we can go on to do these other studies, and then narrow it down with that. And honestly, I think, I know it sounds kind of silly because we talked about being a health and wellness play and our name is Psych Wellness, but I think that in 2021, you'll see us go down a path similar to what the MindMeds of the world are doing, and going after some of those very serious health matters that muscimol can be a benefit for. And we're excited to sort of put our hat in that ring and be part of, trying to find some natural solutions for people with these very, very challenging illnesses.
Where do you see the space heading? I mean, I'm looking at a lot of these names here, and I'm thinking, okay, how many of these people are proper custodians of capital that can actually, you got to raise significant money to actually move forward with clinical trials. How many of where do you see the space going? What I find interesting is we're going to have a bunch of companies that actually do raise significant capital, but not enough to actually get the clinical trial thing done. What's your take on the space as a whole and where you see it in 2 to 3 years in terms of the Canadian sort of psychedelic plays?
Sure, it's a great question, and I know there's two sides to the Aurora trade right now, and I know that Terry Booth is sort of villainized in sort of the retail mindset, but having him on my board and having him as someone that I can lean on as we navigate this new industry has been tremendous. And he and I were talking just the other day, and he said, Jeff, if you look at what MindMed just did, people say, oh, they're fully financed now for their clinical trials. He goes, it's not what's happening. Yes, they've got the money for it, but this is going to be similar to what we saw in cannabis, where you're going to have a couple front runners who get cashed up, and then they can cherry pick what they want. Now, I think for us, we've got a very unique opportunity. We want to stay in our lane. We've got Professor Nutt, and I keep going back to that because I really think that, that was a huge win for our company to get someone of his caliber. He's got people from all over the world reaching out to him already saying, we want to work with you. We want to do this with Amanita. We want to do something on muscimol. He said in that video interview that I've referred to earlier, muscimol is where psilocybin was 10 years ago. And we are the only ones working on it right now. We've got a 1-year head start on anyone else that comes into this because we've done all the data, we've done all the science work. So we're really excited about moving it forward. As an industry goes, I think we're going to start to see there's some really great, talented people coming together. The challenge, as you know, is the who's real, who's not. who's going to get funded to the point that they can move it forward. Some of those good ones that might have the great scientific team but don't have people who understand capital markets will get cherry picked because they won't be able to, defend themselves, if you will, by getting that market cap. And that's one of our concerns right now is ensuring that we can, get ourselves to a point where we could be the acquirer versus being acquired, because we think we really do have that unique opportunity that could stand out. No one else is doing what we're doing. So our sort of goal, my goal as sort of the COO working on the capital market side and the corporate side is really to, try to get some of these banks to engage with us to champion the story, because we need to get in front of the institutions. We've been largely retail held, which is fantastic, and we've got some really strong shareholders who are supporting us. But getting onto that next level and getting into the institutional world, we got our OTC QB uplisting. I should have my DTC eligibility in the first week of January. That's going to allow us to go into that U.S. market more and get more U.S. buying. And I really think that's a huge opportunity in the U.S. as well, because a lot of these groups are restricted in what they can do with psilocybin, LSD, DMT. But again, because we're not an illegal subject, we have a legal substance. We're an option for them to participate, and they all know Professor Nutt's name from Compass, right? Compass is the darling in the space and sort of that beachhead for us. So we're going to try and leverage that and see if we can't get that U.S. audience to participate as well.
What from your experience, raising capital in the space, what kind of investors are looking for, like that have an appetite for this? And obviously that's a little bit of a hard question to put you on the spot live, because you don't want to let any of the companies you're raising capital against know where to look. But can you speak to just the general mindset of the investors who are really interested in investing in these psychedelic plays?
Well, on the retail side, there's a very passionate group of people who've been supporting this cause for 50, 60 years, 20 years, depending on their age, but really feel passionate about natural health solutions, fungi in general, and then psychedelics. So you've got sort of that sort of market that's coming through. Obviously, when there's the type of momentum that we've seen in the sector, you get a lot of the traders who come in and they want to get involved, and they're gonna be in your name for a day or two or a week. And then the institutional side, I think you're seeing the guys that were early movers in cannabis, who have adopted to it here, saying, okay, there's a great opportunity. 5 of these maybe will be the ones that make it, but along the way, there's going to be sort of that rising tide lifts all the ships, and some guys are participating there. And then I think you've also got some of the lower money, like family office guys, maybe, or maybe that's not the right analogy, but some brokers with bigger books who didn't participate in the cannabis because they felt it was too risky. There were too many regulatory hurdles in front of them, and are now sort of feeling like, okay, I don't want to miss this opportunity. And I don't think the analogy, I don't think cannabis and psychedelics are going to run a parallel path. I think it's a very different. This is strictly, I really believe that it's medically focused to begin with. I think, there are some opportunities in the rec side, and I think those are fantastic. You can't say there's no rec market. It's been around for 60 plus years. People have been using the products and growing it at home, and there's that culture that exists. But I think really to attract the larger capital and to make an impact, I think it's really down the medicinal side. And that's really where our focus is for 2021, because we see the capital going there. And again, as we did more work on our mushroom and the compounds and realized that we do have an opportunity to have, albeit a different compound, but a similar effect for some of these mental health issues, we really felt passionate about, participating and being one of the groups that can help people from that standpoint.
Yeah, from a capital standpoint, these deals don't like it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're either going to need a tremendous amount of cash, or else you don't need that much cash in your storytelling, and you're really just putting together that advisory team and strategy that people want to write bigger checks on, and investors want to sort of put open market. Whereas like if we looked at cannabis, it was like, okay, I got to raise money to get through my phase 1 build out and then wait for licensing. And I got to raise more money to get through my phase 2 build out, et cetera. It kind of seems like the hurdles are like wider and ultimately much higher in terms of capital requirements for the psychedelic plays. Would that be a fair statement?
I think, it's hard to answer that, because I think in the psychedelic space, we have a couple different, verticals. You've got, as I said, the sort of the rec side, then you've got the tech and groups like Pharmater who are doing some really cool stuff and using AI and going down that path. Magic Med who are doing some cool stuff, and then you've got the clinical and the medicinal side, and so that those are going to determine the type of capital that's required. I think on the medicinal and the clinical side, you do have there's a need for a lot of capital. Those phase 1, 2, 3 studies are not inexpensive. They take time. They take a lot of money. But again, you are also look solutions to a massive global problem, and so the reward is worth it. It takes some time. And that's where it comes key to, in my opinion, I think it's really important that you have, that team that underpins what you're doing, so people know that you've got the capability of doing that type of work. You need to have professionals that can lead you through that process and attract the right partners, whether it be lab partners, CROs, who can help you build out the strategy and move it forward. And then you also need to have those contacts on the banking side, because as you pointed out, it's an expensive venture. You need to ensure that you can finance through the process and you're hitting those milestones. And I think we're very milestone driven in the capital markets. So if you're successful in hitting those and articulating to the market that you're successful in doing that, the money will be there. I think, especially we talked earlier, we started talking about COVID, and I think anything that can be a solution. I know there's big pharma is looking at all of these scenarios because they're concerned. We need something for anxiety. We need something for PTSD. The effects that people are having from being isolated are only going to compound as we go through this. And so, I think the money will be there because it's going to be a viable solution. And big pharma hasn't had a breakthrough for mental health issues in 20 plus years. So they're looking at this sector very seriously as well.
We've got a question here. I'm not fully certain I understand it. You might understand it better, Jeff. Are psychedelic research activities eligible for SR and ED credits? I'm not entirely certain what that would be.
Shred credits.
Shred credits. Okay.
Possibly, yeah. So possibly. We are working with our CRO partners right now who do the bulk of that work. So we don't have, in those cases, a lot of them you would get funded back for the work that your employees are doing in these studies. So in the case of Datametrics, for example, we are very successful in getting shred credits because the developers were working on new AI programs for the government, and we were able to apply that back and get 70%, I think it was, of their salaries back. In this case, we're outsourcing a lot of that to these CRO partners. It wouldn't make sense for us to try and build a scientific team to do that when all the infrastructure exists somewhere and they can do that for you. So we will look into it. Certainly, it's an area that as we progress and we get deeper into these studies and we're doing surveys and we're doing the likes of that, we'll have more man hours on it. So we'll look into those things for sure.
It's interesting.
Okay, well, we should probably wrap it up here, but there's one other thing I figured that we'd ask you about here, Jeff, if that's okay. We know that you're a former junior mining guy. Jay and I both have pretty large positions in some gold miners. Where do you see the gold heading in the new year and some of the junior mining names?
Well, I was a little curious to see how this whole layout was going to work. So I watched your interview with Russell yesterday. Certainly he's better equipped to answer that question than I am. But I would suggest, similar to Russell, a lot of things in 2020 don't make sense. And if you look at what we do know, and what my personal opinion is, with everything that's happening, the governments are too big to fail in the sense they can't let the markets fall down because people are losing jobs. If you lose your investments and then you lose your house, the wheels fall off the bus, you get anarchy. So I think there's going to be continued stimulus that supports it, but eventually I think people are going to look like Bitcoin, for example, at all-time highs. These are a result of people looking for alternatives to diversify the risk. That I think people are understanding this has been an incredible run, but how does it really make sense when all these other factors are happening? So I'll leave it to the mining guys who are living and breathing it every day to answer that question. But my opinion would be that
didn't you used to be a mining guy?
Institutional sales and trading. So I certainly worked with,
I thought you were
in
a mining
Toronto.
guy.
Yeah, no, we had a shell that we looked for some assets in, but I haven't really, to any large degree, rolled up my sleeves and involved on an operational side, on the mining side. I'm passionate about it. We finance a lot of companies, and when I was on the institutional desk, and that was about a 8 to 10 year sort of run where all Toronto did was mining. So very familiar with it, and it's kind of weird the way things are now, but I think it will be a safe haven eventually. Again, people will go to the gold and silvers. But guys, we got these cool hats. I know I got to get some swag to you.
I can't keep wearing my Steelers hat after last night. Yeah, you're gonna have to send some.
I've been wearing my Tinley hat religiously. There
you go. Well, let's upgrade it to some psychedelic wear and get into this new sort of the new renaissance of the investment. But what I would like to do also, guys, I don't know if you're equipped for it, but if you want to say the first 2 or 3 guys that reach out to you after watching this, we'll get their address and we'll send a hat to them as well. Hopefully you've got 3 guys that have listened to you long enough.
Let's say this. Let's go first 3 guys to message Jay on his Twitter account.
Here it goes.
I'm delegating, or do you want me to take it?
It doesn't. We'll go with me because you said it already. I'm sure there's messages already about to fly.
First 3 people to comment. Okay, here. This will be fun. Comment the words. Give me my hat at the deep dive _CA. Hashtag a new hashtag that I think Jeff made, SCS Live. I don't know if Jeff invented that or not.
I had thrown it up.
You guys have thrown it to me, yeah.
Send tweet that at Jay if you're listening or watching. Give me my hat at the deep dive _CA. Hashtag SCS Live. And you
gotta throw some psych wellness love on there too, bro.
Oh, oops. Okay, hold on here. Let me see if I can. This doesn't let me edit. Give me my hat at the deep dive _CA. Hashtag SCS Live. We'll put the ticker symbol psych.c. Send that over. First 3 people who tweet, give me my hat at the deep dive, hashtag SCS Live with the ticker symbol PYS.C. Get your address over to Jay through the DMs, or I'll reach out to you, and then we'll get it over to Jeff, and Jeff will make sure that you get your own Got Shrooms psych hat.
There you go.
And it's that easy to get swag. Let's see how people usually like free stuff.
These hoodies. So these hoodies have been going crazy. I've only got like 4 left. I don't know. I think some of the brokers were handing them out for Christmas presents this year.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us, Jeff. I learned a lot.
Oh, it's my pleasure, guys. Listen, I welcome the opportunity to come back if you'll have me. And, I really enjoy the banter back and forth. I think it's a great setup that you guys have got going, and look forward to it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I know we're trying to cover small caps here. And I know that you're very active in the junior market. So you're a great guest to have on and just talk about what you have going on, or some of the other investments you have, and, giving some commentary. We always appreciate that, and try to serve our audience with some quality small cap discussion.
Let's maybe we'll get Mitch on from Level Jump.
Oh yeah,
perfect. We didn't even talk about that one. You're on the board there.
Yeah, it's a great little story. Mitch can talk more to it. Obviously, he's the CEO, but it's a great story. I'm glad you guys picked it up, because I think as a small cap name in the healthcare space, I think they've got a great opportunity as well.
Yeah, well, definitely we're gonna have Mitch on in the new year.
Cool.
But thanks so much for joining us today, Jeff. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Oops, I may have cut him off there. I'm new to operating this, guys. This looks better.
So yeah, Jeff was alluding to Level Jump Healthcare, who's involved in teleradiology services. Just went public, I believe it was last Monday, off the top of my head. Ticker symbol JUMP.
I'm doing this on the fly. We don't actually have an editor. This is just me handling this. Jay, do you want to read them or give them the disclaimer about what we do here?
Yeah. So as always, we aren't investment advice. In light of today's show, we are also not medical advice. As Jeff was saying, a lot of that's anecdotal. They're going through the clinical trial processes right now and some stuff. So yeah, entertainment purposes only. We hold no licenses. That's really the short of it. Like, subscribe, follow whatever platform you're watching on. I know we're live across a few different platforms right now, so don't forget to show us some love. And don't forget about the free hat. My phone's been buzzing like mad. I don't know if we reached the quota yet with all 11 viewers right now.
I never even thought about giveaways. That's a great idea. We owe Jeff that one. I think that's why people do it.
Alert! We're working on a new logo right now so that we can get some apparel going in the new year.
Yeah, and hopefully Jay and I don't kill each other over it.
Yeah, it's as always, we're working on lots in the background, and I just want to say thanks to our supporters.
And you're also supposed to tweet the symbol psych.c. This is hard to do this stuff on the fly. We're gonna have someone who actually operates this on the back end.
Steve
there's no edit button. And I can't copy and paste what I last put, so I have to type the whole thing out. I don't know. Like, if you don't put psyched wellness, I'll just make Jay go to the store and buy a bunch of hats, and you can get a Steelers hat. We just lost in the Bengals.
As my Twitter comments allude to, I know nothing about sports, so you're speaking a different language to me, buddy.
Oh, we'll see if this gets any tweets. Last thing I'd like to say is we're still figuring this out. We've averaged over 10 viewers today, which it blows my mind that people want to hear us talk about small cap stocks. And I think you're witnessing hopefully something that's the beginning of something great. I do believe that. I do believe that there is a large underserved audience when it comes to talking about small cap stocks and getting that commentary and that research. And we're going to do our best to provide that. It's hard when you cover as many names in the space that we do. You end up with that sort of syndrome of, your knowledge ends up being a mile wide and an inch deep. And that's something that's an issue. And it's one of the reasons that I'm very grateful to get to work with Jay here is he is a human encyclopedia of CDAR transactions. If there was Jeopardy of things that have been posted on CDAR,
there's an idea. We can have a round of Jeopardy with Michael Miller. We'll do it live.
Yeah,
Michael Miller would love that.
Oh yeah, that would be. I don't know. He likes accounting. I don't know if he reads the news releases. But overall, I just want to say to everybody, I appreciate so much the 10 of you or so, or I don't know how many people will end up watching it in repeat on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, wherever we're posting this thing. But I appreciate so much that you guys are taking the time to sort of watch us as we kind of roll this thing out. It's been second day here. We're still trying to figure out the technology and get better. And it's hard to work the tech and say entertaining, relevant things. So we're getting there. And we really, really do appreciate the fact that there are people who want to, they have the same passion and love of the junior and small cap markets that we do. If you have any idea for guests we can have on, we'd love to just bring anybody on who's going to say some things. Hopefully won't get us sued.
Parting shot from me would largely be thanks to Jeff for joining us as always. Tomorrow, I believe we've got Kelly Jennings from Powerground Solutions on, and in the next 15 minutes or so, we will have our daily dive out with Jonathan Moore from Star Peak Exploration. Great little episode there, so feel free to give that a watch as well.
And again, to our audience, you could have spent the last hour anywhere, any place, staring at any screen, but you chose to spend it with us. And I sincerely appreciate that. And I hope to get more engagement and serve you guys better with following quality small cap names, providing quality coverage, and helping add to your sort of information that can help not make financial decisions. I'm not there's no buy or sell recommendations here, but you're at least getting the entertainment that you need to sort of learn and educate yourself and understand the environment and follow the environment, which is really what we're getting at. So thank you very much for joining us today. And we will be back tomorrow. We're going to be joined by Kelly Jennings from Powerband Solutions. I think that is pretty much it. Thanks.